concerned about New England housing stock because it's been around for a long time. In other parts of the country, lead is not an issue. The older the house, the more likely that there's lead.
Back in the early 90s, I was a resident of Bristol. We bought an old home there. We started doing some renovations on it, and a friend of mine kind of brought an article to my attention that was in Newsweek magazine. That the whole featured article was on the front was about lead poisoning, and she just asked if we'd had our child screened, and of course we hadn't. So I took her to the local health center and asked if she could be screened, and they told us that lead wasn't a problem in Vermont, it was just the inner cities. So we didn't have her screened. We continued to sand our floors and stairway and do all those kind of renovations, and then later in the, I don't know, midwinter, she was complaining that her stomach hurt and kind of just made me think that it would be worth taking her in and trying to get her screened again, and her level came in higher than the recommended level. It wasn't incredibly elevated, it was like a 12.
What we recognized beginning in the mid-80s was that lower levels had an impact on children that were not previously recognized. But the bottom line is we know that lead affects development in an adverse way. Big risk nowadays is dust. Now, how can dust get into you? A lot of ways. Okay, I ask families in my practice if they live in older homes if they have any painted floors or painted decks, because those certainly should be checked for their lead content. Because when you think about a 12-month-old or an 18-month-old or a 24-month-old, they're going along that floor with their hands. And where do the hands go next? In the mouth.
Screening is incredibly important. It educates the parent to, then the parent really knows that there's something here that they have to deal with.
Well, if we don't test, we won't know. If we wait for your child to develop symptoms, then I think it's safe to say that irreversible harm from lead has occurred.
It's important for the community, not only Burlington but Winooski residents, to know that the Burlington Lead Program is here as a resource for all the residents in both of these communities. We can provide a lot of free services to these communities to help deal with the lead paint issue. A typical Burlington Lead Program project would be about 2 weeks in duration. Contractors first come in, and once the project is set up under containment, the work starts. And typically window replacement, door area scraping and stripping, windowsill stripping, and then interior flaking lead-based paint stabilized. After all of the abatement work is done, the unit is then cleaned from ceiling to floor using special lead-safe techniques, and a consultant comes in and does some dust wipe testing in the unit.
The simple reason why landlords should care about lead is that it's the law that they care about lead. In the end, landlords have a very clear and simple obligation to provide safe, decent, affordable housing. And if you have something that is not good for your tenants, whether it's lead or something else, it's clearly your obligation to control it or abate it in some way.
If a landlord calls our program to enroll a unit, they first have to meet eligibility requirements.
At that point in time, once we put our application in, the lead program runs with it. They get the applications filled out. There has to be some tenant verification information, but they're excellent. They take care of all of that. So at the end of the day, there's really not a lot that we have to get involved with.
We'll send out a testing consultant to test the unit. We'll take the test results and develop a work plan, and then we'll bid the work plan out so that we have a price, and then contracts can be signed, and then we'll go in and actually do the remediation.
I'd say up to now we have probably done 12 buildings. I absolutely endorse what the lead program's doing. It just makes fundamental business sense to do this. Protects the people that live in the buildings, number one, and then number two, it improves the quality of the property that you own. So over the long term, it's absolutely a win-win. Just makes total sense to do something and get involved with the lead program.
There's nothing more devastating to a parent than discover that possibly their child has been exposed to something that is going to make it difficult for them to process information, possibly for the rest of their life.
So the work that we're doing in Burlington to address our housing stock, both owned and rental property, is so crucial. Let me tell you that when we first started screening in our office, the problem was that we would find these kids who had slightly elevated leads, and there was no resource to do much about it. You know, now through the work that is being done in Burlington, there's a resource, and I'm really proud of that as a Burlington resident.